building ships and big industries in the area. But I learned that somehow it was related with the Prime Minister's campaign. And up to now, I'm working hard on inviting many Korean companies to take part in this Mumbai Maritime Study event. So what's behind it? This is a showcase where we are and what kind of perception the Indian leadership has on Korea. And the legitimate question is what's behind it. You had your new economy after the watershed of 1991. And in 1992, you have formulated the European policy. In 2005, you had East Asia Summit, organized India to expand it to some countries other than just Pacific. And in this framework, India has been interacting with countries in Northeast Asia. And it was upgraded to Act East, and now, in a parallel, the economy is about to take off. And those who know pretty much about Northeast Asia, particularly Korea, appreciate the fact that some countries like Korea have developed the economy in the past several decades rather fastly. So economic development is very important. And then secondly, as a result, the economy is the wealth is well distributed. Homogeneous people, mostly well-educated, mostly well-to-do people. So this kind of uniform success is what you are thinking about. It's my guess, my observation on how you observe Korea, and as a result, why you have keen interest in Korea. Additionally, there have been a number of Korean companies like Samsung and Hyundai and others which have been quite successful in Korea. Of course, we have competitors. There are many Japanese companies, Japanese investors, but maybe because of the differences in our nature of our people or idiosyncrasies, Korean businessmen have been more risk-taking in India, and they have been proven to be rather successful in the past 3 decades. So this has led India to be more interested in Korea. This love India very much, whether you know it or not. You must travel to Korea to find out the love we always harbor for India. Why? Because when Korea was under the brutal rule of Japanese military occupation, Rabindranath Tagore was traveling to Japan, and he was asked to say something about Korea. And he wrote a beautiful poem on Korea. He said that in his poem, Korea is the lamp bearer which will illuminate the whole Asia. So it was widely shared in the Korean intellect at the time. It was really a hope, and pride on our side. Professor UTTAM mentioned briefly about 2,000 years ago there was some linkage between our two countries. It has become rather cliche that a princess of Ayodhya traveled to Korea to become the king. But what is more important is this. This week, at this moment, there are about 20 king's families from Korea who have traveled to India to pay respect to their ancestors, this was princess in Ayodhya, make this ritual of deep bow to our ancestors. They do it annually. 20 to 30 people come and pay respect to their Indian ancestors. There are many other things. For instance, your first foreign minister, I forgot his first name, but Mel, who has a record of making the longest speech at the United Nations. Even before the midnight birth of this country, he was chosen as a member of the United Nations Committee right after the liberation of Korea back in 1945. And he played a very constructive role for the universal election in the South, which enabled our republic to be born. And many other things. Of course, Indian paramilitary hospital troops were sent to Korea at the time of the Korean War. This is quite well known in the Korean public. And some, of course, Buddhists come here for their pilgrimage. And many of them say that they have come to India and they found that Indians usually do not know about Korea, let alone mutual love. So that's why I said that here in Korea we have unrequited love for India. So my mission is to make Indian people the same favor you get, or same love you get from Korea. Economically, also, we are in need of India. Some 20 years ago, when China was about to rise, again, at the time when Japanese businessmen were still considering taking everything into consideration, some brave Korean businessmen went to China and took on the ride together with Chinese rising business. It happened. We took advantage of the rising China. And now it's time. Many Koreans believe that it's time for us to rise again with the rising India. Now, politics. We have our mutual friend, China, and there is a commonality between India and Korea that we have a troubled neighbor. There are many similarities, but let me just single out one thing. The overwhelming rule of military in politics, which wants to maintain a certain level of tension. So that's why you had the terror attack right after Prime Minister Modi's visit to and it is the case with North Korea as well. Secondly, despite huge investment in the defense budget. The big share, almost 50% of the allocation of defense budget in the whole budget. The economy has been sagging. So as a result, only less than 10% in our case of our defense budget is overwhelming vis-à-vis that of North Korea. So is the case with India. So accordingly, in several years' time, we have seen the asymmetry in conventional defense preparedness. And to strike this balance, nuclear weapons have come up. In case of India, you have your own, for the sake of your own difference. Now, after the fourth nuclear test by North Korea in January, at the core of our society, we talk about the need for going for nuclear weapons. My government position is firmly opposed to it. But in academia, people talk about it. But again, this is something we have as a similarity between India and Korea. I believe this is a good thesis for master's degree, at least. Think about that. Now, let's move on to a snapshot of the bilateral relations. Prime Minister Modi visited Korea in 2015, last year, and the two leaders signed the Special Strategic Partnership Agreement, which defines the current status of our bilateral relationship and offers the vision of the relationship. It includes, among others, annual summit to be made and a frequent foreign ministers meeting and national security joint meeting. We call it 2+2, and military cooperation and others. And in the economic area, we agreed to introduce a Korea desk in Prime Minister's office. We will second an official to Prime Minister Modi's office, who will be playing a role of single focused man in dealing with all the problems of the Korean companies in India. And he agreed to increase the bilateral from 6 to 19. So this is a kind of framework to be further filled with in later years, in the future years. We have about 500 Korean companies. We have around 1,000 Indian, 3,000 Koreans and around 1,000 Indians in Korea. Most of them are students and techies in Suwon, where we produce mobile phones and so on. But again, despite my explanation on what we have, there are even bigger room for further enhancement. For instance, we can have many more Indians working in Korea, and likewise. Of course, I'm not talking about all the good things. I hear very often some complaints about the Indian government's unpredictable measures taken today after the bidding process. some harassment made by taxmen or some other officials to the Korean business companies here in India and so on. But these are being sorted out. So I am very hopeful that we will have ample opportunity for furthering our bilateral relationship. This leads me to talk a little bit about future. As I said, the Indian government seems to be in the right direction, in the sense that you pursue a number of mega projects, making India digital India, clean India, and building smart cities. And we Korean companies have most recently done many of these. That's why we are well poised to take part in these projects. I always talk to Korean businessmen and even to my staff at the embassy that we should never be bragging about our achievements. The simple reason that Korea was able to achieve the economic, well, as they say, miracle in the past several decades is this. Vis-a-vis India, Korea is a relatively small country, only 15 million, and very homogeneous people. So if something becomes a fashion in the middle class, that becomes a fashion of the whole country, like playing golf. Everybody plays golf. So it was easy for the government or the society as a whole to motivate people. By motivating people to one direction, we were fastly moving towards economic development, democratization, and so on. So, don't brag about our achievements in front of India. India is a huge country and very diverse country. There's nothing to brag about in our case. That's my point I always make. But again, because of this difference, we can make a win-win situation. We can become a strategic partner, not just economic area, but also in security area. We have, as I mentioned, a neighbor or brothers with nuclear weapons. We have same converging interest in addressing the global issues at the United Nations, and also regional issues like maritime security. And also, when we sort out the problem of North Korean nuclear issue through this six-party talks, which has been rather dormant for the past several years, then we can think about how we can develop it into a regional security regime. In doing so, we expect active participation and very positive contribution of India. So these things lead us to our two countries to become good partners. Well, some of you might question why I have been talking about so many things about economic cooperation in this center, which is more focused on security matters. As a diplomat, I have the answer. Although I also studied security matters, just like you, in my college days, I have learned that economy matters very much. just in running the country, but also in diplomacy. Here is one good example. When I was posted in Washington, D.C., I had the chance of talking about the aftermath of the end of the Cold War. It was 1996, and people were still talking about why the CIA or the State Department were unable to predict the sudden end of the Cold War or the collapse of the Soviet Union. There are many reasons, there are many explanations, but one thing that struck me was this. By an economic officer who was there in Moscow, working for the American embassy. At the time, according to him, the American ambassador was Ambassador Matlock, who happens to be a brilliant linguist. He was very widely respected by diplomats in the State Department. Nevertheless, he didn't have any background in economics, and he didn't know much about the true nature and also the limitation of these reform measures taken by Gorbachev at that time. And the economic section in the embassy made reports that it will not work eventually. The perestroika and other things. It's like, I still remember his analogy. It's like saying you are half pregnant. There is no such thing as half pregnant. You are either pregnant or not pregnant. This will not work. But Ambassador Matlock didn't appreciate it and didn't catch it. So, as a diplomat, you should know a deeper understanding of what's going on in the country you are residing in. That's economic movement. And since then, I have closely watched the economic situation in the country where I used to work. And here in India, very pleasantly, I find so many positive things. Well, this is the end of my presentation, but let me just add one footnote, small footnote. I talked about the diversity vis-a-vis homogeneity, diversity of India vis-a-vis homogeneity of Korea. Prime Minister Modi said it very beautifully that the diversity of India is the beauty. The diversity is the beauty of India, and unity is strength. I once paraphrased it. The homogeneity is strength of Korea, and diversity is our dream. Because in 21st century, we need to find a model, let's say a business model, or modus operandi, whatever, in which different people with different ideas all live together in a harmonious manner. And that should be the purpose of studying international relations. Let me stop here and let me entertain you. Thank you.